estimate that if that earthquake would have happened a single day sooner, there would have been about 2,300 casualties. But we only had 9 because it was Good Friday. So huge, huge blessing for us, and it played a major role in our history here. We'll talk a lot about that earthquake kind of later on in the trolley tour. That's one reason why this is historic 4th Avenue. The next reason, I want you guys to look one block up. On the right-hand corner of the sidewalk is a little bronze statue of a dog, right by Club 25. You can see him really clear right about now. Can you see him on the next street corner? Okay, if you can't see him, just walk up that road after the trolley tour. And his name is Balto, and Balto's nose is the starting line for the Iditarod sled dog race that happens every year in March. So, we have the Iditarod to commemorate the serum run to Nome. You see, in 1925, Nome, Alaska was hit with diphtheria, and the only way we could get the medicine up there was to mush it through these relay teams of sled dogs. So Balto, he brought the medicine in the last 55 miles to Nome. He kind of got a lot of the initial fame, the glory, got his picture taken. A lot of people have heard of Balto. However, the real hero of that story up here in Alaska is named Togo. Now, Togo would bring the medicine 256 miles through the interior, and he would save the life of Leonard Sepla, his musher, 2 times on that journey. Once he stopped her from going off a cliff in a whiteout blizzard. Next, when they tried to cut across the Northern Sound to save some travel time, the ice started to break up and they were stranded on an iceberg. So what Sepla did is he took a spike and drove into the ice, tied a rope around it. To the other end of that rope, he would tie his faithful lead dog Togo, and when they got closer to the shoreline, he would throw Togo to shore, and he yelled, "He, Togo, he," to command to pull, and that 40-pound little dog pulled a 2,000-pound iceberg to shore, rescued his entire team, saved all their lives. But you see those 256 miles and those feats of strength, those will kind of take out Togo's legs. That was the last Alaskan race he would ever go on. However, in his retirement, he still would have the energy to father about 260 puppies. So, every winner of that Iditarod sled dog race, with the exception of only one, is a direct descendant of Togo. They're called the Sepla-Siberians, and they're the dogs with the big hearts. So, coming here, this is the rail depot or the engine depot. If anybody's leaving from a train in Anchorage, this is where you're going to go to board that train. And this is how the city of Anchorage was started. So in the early 1900s, huge deposits of coal were discovered here. But you see, we couldn't send any of that coal from the port because there's only about 11 feet of water here at low tide. So we needed to build this rail system going down to Seward at the time, the closest deep water port. And the federal government would step in to help us complete it. They sent 2,000 workers, gave them 1,000 insulated army tents, and Anchorage was started as what's called Tent City, Alaska, just on the other side of this building. And this building to our right is a World War II era building. So it was originally built as an engine depot on the first floor. The second floor was a hospital built to house the wounded soldiers in the North Pacific Theater. And the third floor was a maternity ward. So it used to be a fully functioning hospital and engine depot. But to this day, it's just an engine depot. Looking over here to the left, this is the Alaska Railroad engine number 1. Yeah. Can you see that funny looking red and white bumper on the front of that train there? Any guesses as to what they used that for back in the day? I thought snow too, so that's a good guess. But it's for the moose. So this little engine, it would go under 5 miles an hour and just bump those moose off the tracks. So it's nicknamed the Moose Gooser. That's the nickname they gave it. That's what his job was. And that's very important because the bull moose up here, they can get up to 1,600 pounds. And if you were to slam into one of those full speed of the coal train, you are totally going off the tracks. So it's a lot safer for our moose and a lot safer for our workers to use these little engines here.
Is that how, like, does the train travel slow now for that same reason?
So it travels slow for that same reason, but they also have spotters so they can kind of see where the moose are at. But they will be able to, they do slow the trains down and will actually follow them on the tracks until they decide to get off the tracks nowadays. So there's a picture, there's like 4 or 5 moose walking on this track and this train just going real nice and slow behind them. So over here to the right, that's the port of Anchorage. You can see all of the shipping containers and whatnot. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But going back to the railroad, after all those workers finished lining the rail system going down to Seward, the federal government decided to extend the line of it up into the interior, up into Fairbanks. At the time of that line of the rail system's completion, President Harding was in office, so he was invited to come up here and drive in the famous Golden Spike. A ton of news reporters would follow him up here because he was the first president to ever come to Alaska. And those news reporters, they called up one of the Army generals, and they asked him, they said, what do we wear to Alaska? And that Army general said, it's freezing cold, even in the middle of summer. You gotta wear thick wool socks, thick wool leggings, and a thick wool suit just to stay warm. That's right. Okay, the day that President Harding shows up to Fairbanks on the interior to drive in the Golden Spike, it was 97 degrees. 3 of those news reporters would actually pass out during his welcoming speech due to heat exhaustion, and President Harding himself missed that Golden Spike 2 times because he was suffering from heat exhaustion. They were very upset with that Army general, but they were able to finish the railroad and document it beautifully. Looking over here to the right, though, coming back to the port of Anchorage and this big old body of water that houses the port, this is the Kinnick Arm, after the Kinnick Glacier. That's where it gets its name. And it's the northernmost branch of the Cook Inlet. Now, the Cook Inlet is named after Captain James Cook. He came up here looking for the elusive Northwest Passage, kind of this shorter trade route. And unluckily for him, it doesn't exist, so he would never find it. But he would go to Hawaii, Australia, New Zealand, Tahiti, and he also came to Alaska. So if you look over here to the right, there's a little statue of Captain Cook at Resolution Park here to the right. There he is. He was the first person to accurately map out the shape of Alaska, and his maps were so accurate they would be used up until the early 1900s. So he's very good at what he did. But you see, after he came to Alaska, he would return again to Hawaii, and unfortunately, Captain Cook was killed in a small confrontation on a beach there in Hawaii. Now, nobody in Alaska blames him for going back to those beautiful islands with those nice sandy beaches, because if you look over here to our right, you can see our coastline in Anchorage. All we got is mud. Can you see all that mud out there? That's right, that's all we got. Not great for beach volleyball. But anyways, they tried to build a bridge across that inlet to the other body of land out there. They went down 700 feet deep in the mud, still weren't able to hit bedrock. So we have no idea how far down it goes. That's why we can't build a bridge. And they say that the state of Alaska actually gets 4 acres bigger every single year from all the mud and all the silt that's deposited into the oceans from the glaciers, kind of rubbing down on those mountains. But coming back to the downtown area, after we were Tent City, we expanded up